Do faith and fact fight with each other? Is it easier to believe something, to trust the process, when you just know? Or does knowing the facts, the science behind something, make faith even harder than it already is? Hello, my name's Ian Currey and this is Thinking Out Loud. Come on, let me tell you what I think. Recently we visited the Grand Canyon. I had a few days off in a row, so we jumped on a plane and off we went. Nice. Working for an airline has some significant benefits. The thing about the Grand Canyon that hit me the most wasn't the vastness or the beauty, or that it seemed to go on and on forever, but that it was so abrupt. The journey to the canyon by car or train, while nice, is unremarkable. The Grand Canyon isn't like Mount Everest or the Matterhorn, which sit in a range of mountains. As you approach those amazing sights, there are mountains all around you, and you can see them from very far away. The Matterhorn has a lovely little village guarding the trails in the foothills, all very lovely. But the Grand Canyon, well, it sneaks up on you. 1 minute you're in wide open countryside, and the next, there you are at the rim of the canyon. Quite amazing. When one of my friends found out I'd visited, who hadn't yet seen the canyon, he asked a most peculiar question. And do you think it was carved out by the Colorado River, or was Noah's flood the cause? Well, to be perfectly honest, neither thing crossed my mind while I stood on the rim gazing at the beauty and enormity of the thing. Sometimes just enjoying the reality of the moment is more important than figuring out the how and why. But the question, it made me think a lot. I knew the reason for the question. You see, if the process of carving out the canyon took the millions of years most scientists believe it took, then the world has to be older than is convenient for the particular strand of theology my friend holds that dates creation of the earth as much more recent. Thousands, not millions of years. The problem with such questions is that often those asking them continue to ask everyone they can until they get the answer they're looking for, to back their already predetermined beliefs. The real answers, if not confirming of their particular beliefs, simply can't be right. Now, one of the periods of time I really enjoy studying is the 17 and 1800s, often called the Age of Enlightenment. So many discoveries were made and so many things invented that we take for granted today. One clever man, born in 1791, was Michael Faraday. Now, I found his life to be very interesting, especially since so much of his work has affected the roles I've had throughout my career. Faraday didn't go to college and so had a real struggle working out how mathematical formula work. He would often realize something was the case from logical progression, current flow, induction, light affected by magnetic fields, and so on, and then have to show his mathematical working. Not easy if you don't have a clear understanding of such math. Far from looking for the facts to back up his theories, Faraday was my kind of thinker, looking for answers to back up reality. Despite his lack of formal education, with such a sharp mind, Faraday quickly found ways to explain things that others struggled to comprehend. This cleverness stayed with him in many aspects of his life, including his belief in God. Like many scientists of the time, he belonged to a little-known sect called the Sandemen. I'm quite sure they were a lot of fun to talk to, but unlike most of us today, seem to have been very particular and organized about their beliefs. The reality was that many of these clever minds had used logic to reason that certain things about God simply had to be true. And if those things indeed were fact, then certain other things must also be true. Logical progression. Quite remarkably, some of the key components of what most of us would call faith were accepted as fact by these people. There was no question. Far from having to find facts that supported their faith, their beliefs, they then instead had to find faith to support their facts, the science. The sect no longer exists in anything like the form Faraday would have known. Unlike Faraday, my friends asking about the age of the canyon was looking for facts to support their already made-up minds. I love science and the whole industrial revolution that had to find solutions to problems. I came across another example this week involving railway signals and a special kind of railway junction. These days it's easy to design an electronic circuit that interlocks with points and junctions to prevent collisions. Computers can easily control the whole system. Back in the day, signal boxes had complex systems of tokens and interlocking rods and bars and levers to do what now a few pennies of electronic components solve without even trying. Without clever modern solutions, I often wonder if we could still solve the day-to-day problems of a couple of hundred years ago. My friend's questioning of the age of the Grand Canyon wasn't real, of course. He was asking to try to bolster his belief rather than to actually test the facts. Faraday famously said, "Nothing is too wonderful to be true if it be consistent with the laws of nature." Clever minds, scientists and mathematicians, can sometimes see things that some of us have to use some faith to accept. But in the end, knowledge and faith are two very different things. The idea of proving God exists beyond a reasonable doubt might be a lovely challenge. But is that what we mean by believing in God? An old lady once told me, "The devil believes God exists." There's more to believing than knowing he's real. There are a number of people in history that have asked, one way or another, in the context of faith, what must I do to be saved? Clearly, if all we need to do is prove God exists or not, or believe that beyond a reasonable doubt, you would think there would be a spiritual advantage to clever scientists who think they can do that one way or another. That doesn't sound fair at all, and not being fair doesn't sound at all like God. When the answer to the question, what must I do to be saved, comes back as believe in the Lord Jesus and you will be saved along with everyone in your household, it can't mean just acknowledging God's existence. Do you see? I'm using logic. The word believe has a depth to it that is far greater than just accepting God's existence. Believe has a richness to it with all sorts of implications. While Faraday decided that if God be God, there is nothing left for us to do, another famous thinker 500 years ago, called Martin Luther, had something to say about faith. Belief and doing things that show we really mean what we say we believe. faith is a living, creative, active and powerful thing. This faith cannot help doing good works constantly. It doesn't stop to ask if good ought to be done, but before anyone asks, it already has done them and continues to do them without ceasing. It is just as impossible to separate faith from works as it is to separate heat and light from fire. Certainly, God exists. That's something most of us acknowledge. But to really believe, to add faith to belief, will likely show itself in something other than trying to bend the facts to fit our formula. Standing on the rim of the Grand Canyon, awestruck, enjoying the view, has a parallel with faith. Proving the Grand Canyon is real is easy. Enjoying the beauty without having to prove how it got there might be a little like believing in God and enjoying Him, rather than being quite so precise about the details. Until next time, goodbye.